Yeah, go for it, Bonjo.
So what will be held like next week? What's gonna happen next week?
Well, the next week is let me see, did I show you? Is the final draft of this essay that you're doing. So what's happening now, right, is that you're commenting on the people in your wiki group, and then what you're preparing for Saturday is the revision plan, where you're basically, and I'll go over that if you want. It's basically you setting out what you're going to do in order to revise your essay. Then you're revising your essay, and I believe you are going to turn in the final draft of this essay on Tuesday. That's my understanding.
So like if you don't have any comments in this, like did you do it in that way?
You mean people didn't do it or you didn't do it?
No, I did like there's no comment on my post.
Oh,
I posted the video.
right. Okay. Well, here's the thing. So as far as credit goes, like for grades, oops, geez, for grades, just as long as you do the other people's. So if people don't do yours, then that's difficult. I'm going to be giving comments, so you'll have my comments. But also, I know that the official due date is not till midnight tonight, so people might be doing it later. That's all I can guess. But I'm saying if people don't make comments, it doesn't affect your grade. It affects their grade. That's all. I mean, there's nothing really to do about that. That's also. I mean, if I had to put this peer review and sort of like the negative parts of peer review, this would be one of the problems with it, right? People don't do it or whatever they can't. They don't have things happen and so on. So, but anyway, I guess the theory is with this course, they want people at least to try to engage in it because it can be a valuable tool to help you improve your writing. But of course, people have to do it. So I would just say make sure pay attention to your group. Um, Make sure that you use the peer review sheet and you do that for your people, and that's all you can do really. If there's nothing for you, yeah, you sort of lose out. But like I said, I'm going to try to make comments on everybody's essay. But also, right now is what I'm hoping this. If you're here for this chat, like you will get a good sense, hopefully, of what you need to be doing, like how you can improve your essay. So the other thing I was going to say, hold on, I'm losing. I have like so many screens open right now. Um, yeah, this is a tricky. Did you send that to everyone? You did. I can check. So yeah, Marie. Yeah. Then I didn't catch it because I tried to. I had that happen, and I tried to put people in different groups. Um, if that's still the case for you, I mean, if possible, it would be great if at least you did one. Right. So what I would say is, and the first one's always difficult because I never know for sure who's going to show up and who's not going to show up. So if you submitted something, so what I'll do is I'll put you so that you can do one, at least one is what I want people to be able to do. So I'll see if I can fix that. If I can't fix it, then you just keep sailing on. Like I won't count this as a grade. Basically, what I probably will do is like I can make it be I can exempt you from the assignment, so it doesn't really it doesn't affect your grade at all. It just sort of disappears. So that's what happens if I can't figure it out and I can't give you one to do, and you're still the only one there, then you're not going to get penalized for it because I'll just exempt you from it. And also, as far as schedule, like what we're doing next week, if you go to Blackboard, I made the thing. I think I mentioned it last time. I made it for last time though, so it's still new. But if you go and you click on this schedule in the writer's reference, I put up a schedule for exactly what we're doing for each week. So if you see that, then you can sort of, you have some idea. I realize you don't know the specifics really because the week or the module hasn't opened yet, but you'll have some idea. So like, let's see here. Oh, that's week 4, so we're over here. Oh, it's too big for this. Is that what's happening? What week are we in? Oh, we're in week 3. I'm sorry. Oh my God, time is just makes no sense to me at the moment. I'm not the only one. Yes, go ahead, Anja.
Yes, no, sir. I think like the discussion post was much better than wiki because like in that you could read like bunch of essays and like really got an idea about the discussion.
Well, it depends. The point of the wiki, or at least the point believe of why they do it this way, is that you're supposed to be going very, very in depth into your two partners, right? So it's not just a paragraph comment. It's like what I just went over, right? It's like 8. You're trying to answer 8 main ideas. So it's difficult for people to do, more than 2. So I think that's what the wiki idea is. They they like to use the wiki for longer essay assignments. Um, so it gives people, so first of all, it's longer for the person to read, and then they're also supposed to give more in-depth commentary on it. So the discussion post is good. I agree in that people read a sort of very brief entry, or a few paragraphs even, right, and then make a comment that could be a paragraph or whatever. But for this, you're really trying to go in depth and look at and talk about and make yourself focus on the 8 different questions that they ask. So I think that's the theory. So the discussion board comes back next week, but anytime we're dealing with an essay, they want to use the wiki so that you have basically, hopefully, you have 2 partners, right? There's a groups of 3. You have 2 people that you need to read their essay in depth and give them in-depth advice or in-depth suggestions and commentary. So if you find yourself doing like 1-sentence answers, to the peer review, you don't. That's not right, right? So so the narrative portion of the paper has 4 questions, so that should be a substantial entry. Yeah, go ahead.
And then, like, let's say if you like post a comment, right? If you don't want to be like, I want you to change this, or what, let's say you like the 15 number and you post a comment, but like if you don't get any reply or any response on that, then like you cannot like further on that comment.
Yes.
It's very
I
hard to like comment.
Well, what do you mean? How could so if you read somebody's, you can answer the 4 questions for their essay, right? Is that what you are asking? I'm not sure. I think I'm missing.
Yeah, like if I
If if you don't get a response, that's a problem. But go ahead.
yeah, like if I posted a comment on it like saying I did this, did you mean that, or what do you mean by this, right? So like I don't want to like assume things and then answer that questions on the basis of that. Like I answer these 4 questions assuming that I think you wrote this. So like first comment I write, did you mean that? Did you mean that by that? And
Yeah,
if I
but
don't get any response, then
well, oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, but that's okay. So peer review is like a fundamentally different academic exercise, right? So I understand now that you're sort of compare. That's why you're comparing it to discussions because you're trying to advance discussions and develop discussions. So the peer review is not about that, right? That's why it gives you these questions. You're basically trying to reflect to the person what you're reading in their essay, and then if you have suggestions for how they might make something clearer or better, that's it, right? So you're not really asking them to respond to you or anything because you're right, it's not like a discussion, like it's not supposed to be this sort of advancing of a conversation. It's supposed to be you read their essay, and then based on this criteria you're giving feedback to them, right? So feedback is different fundamentally than discussions, I guess is the best way to say it. I mean, I understand what you mean, but it's sort of like you need to change your mindset, right? So you need to knock it out of the discussion mindset and think of this as a very different thing. And the way the questions are structured, you're not really saying like, I don't understand a single thing you said in here. Like, you're not right. You're trying to be gentle and regular. All you're doing is saying, here's what I understand. So number one, in your own words, what's the point of the main narrative? The main point of the narrative. Can you easily identify the connection between the narrative's main point and digital literacy? Boom. So you say, this person told this story. I think the point might be this. I'm not sure, or maybe I am sure, whatever you want to say. Um, is the connection between their main point and the definition strong, or could they make it stronger? And then you would say, you might want to make the connection stronger. Maybe you could include part of the definition when you're talking about this part or something. Um, do you see what I mean? I don't know. I hope I'm clarifying some of this, because it's a good question. It's like, but it's actually a very good distinction to make, which is what you're doing, right? Between the discussion and the feedback, like those being two sort of separate mental activities. So yeah, that's a great distinction, actually. Where's the epic key? All right. Well, let me go over this then, because I want to. So I'm gonna scroll around with this because it's aggravating. So here's what you need. This is for your own essays, right? You need a way to make people interested. So if you go back, actually, you can do this yourself. I don't know why I was. Um, if you take a look on Blackboard and you go to where I said there's slides and recordings or videos or whatever, last week you can find sort of the suggestions for how to hook people's interest. Now, the thing is, you're telling sort of a personal story about something that you did. So that sort of limits, what you want to do. Meaning, like, I don't know, that you need, statistics. That seems like an odd way to start something that's a personal narrative. But you want to try to word it in a way that's catches someone's or makes people sort of interested in it, right? Like, I decided that I would never be able to learn how to use the internet. You go, wait, what? And then you go on and tell your story. Like, some sort of shocking thing. That's one of the techniques. In any event, if you want other techniques, you can go to that slideshow and just look at them. There's like 8. And some of them will definitely work for this. So you need to grab their interest in the first 2 sentences. That's sort of my, vague rule of thumb. But then here's the thing I want to make sure everybody has. You need to have a thesis statement. So in this type of essay, the thesis statement is basically expressing what it is that changed, like what changed. That's every single narrative, every single story, personal essay, and so on. The thesis of those stories are what has changed. I used to think the world was this way, or understand things this way, or believe this way. This event happens, and now I have a different view or perspective or idea. So you want to figure out what yours is, and you want that to basically be at the end of your introductory paragraph. Right? So you hook the reader's interest, you sort of bring up the subject that you're going to be dealing with, and you want to end with some statement that's going to say or express what it is that changes. Now, this is not a big deal. It doesn't have to be a big deal change, right? It doesn't have to be like, I don't know, like I didn't believe in God, and then I learned about Instagram, and now I believe in God, right? It's like probably not that big of a deal, but it's some shift, right? So for me, I could do my first time of setting up a website to do this business. I had a great idea, something, and I'm doing that, and then what I'm learning in this process that I'm capable of being able to do this, and I reach other people who I don't even know, and they're looking at stuff that I made or whatever. Like, so there's revelation or ideas or insight or something. Something happens. It doesn't have to be a big deal. Like I said, it's not, we're not looking for like the life altering thing. But everybody, when you learn how to do something, no matter what it is, there is some change in you, right? Like, it may be just, who knows, you're more confident about being able to face stuff that you don't know about. That's one. Or you start to think like, wow, this Twitter thing, if I really started to use it, I could use it in all these different ways, because suddenly I'm connected it to all these different people in different ways and so on. Like, your understanding of connection to people might just be totally different after you figure out, how to use or how to manipulate or how to work some sort of social media platform. So in any event, that's the big deal. Is I want to make sure people have a thesis statement, and that's what that is. For this essay, it is, okay, I went through this experience, and I mean, I don't want to say I learned a lesson, because I sort of don't like the learning the lesson, right? I'd rather have it be like my perspective changed, right? I used to think this, like, only superstars and basketball players use Twitter. And so I don't have any, it has nothing to do with my life. And then I learned how to use it, and next thing you know, I'm involved in, I don't know, political discussions or something. Then I have some sort of idea, some change about my understanding of myself. All right, so you want to make sure you hook the interest, you have a thesis statement. Then basically, right, you need, for a narrative, I'm suggesting 3, they don't have to be super long, but, paragraphs. You want a beginning of the story, you want a middle of the story, and you want an end of the story. And again, just like, most short stories, or at least, and definitely personal essays, the whole point of telling a story is to emphasize or illustrate a change that's happened. I used to be this way. Here's how I started off. I approached it. Here's the thing I went through and why it was tough. And here's how I figured something out. And then the end. And then now I know something about, I've learned something. I mean, think about just regular literacy, right? It's like, yeah, we learned how to read. Okay. And then we learned how to understand what we read. And then suddenly, like, we could read anything. It's like having a code, right? Like, you understand, you break some sort of code, and suddenly you have access to all sorts of stuff, right? So that's sort of what they're trying to get at for the digital literacy. Like, your understanding changes. You learn how to do something, and then suddenly you're like, whoa, this means if I can do this, I can understand all sorts of things, or try a bunch of different things and so on. Anyway, so you want to try to structure it like with a beginning and a middle and an end. So you have your introduction, you get their interest, you explain sort of what the meat of it's going to be. Is it going to be about Instagram, about Twitter? Is it going to be about learning, I don't know, how to code, something like that. Anyway, and then here's the thesis. I finally, I learned that I could use Instagram, and I had tools. Right? Instead of being on the outside, being like, gosh, I don't use those things, and those things are impossible. You could be on the inside. Now you're like, oh, they're part of a tool. They're like writing and reading. I can use them to do things. That would be the idea. All right, so the middle is, beginning, middle, end. Then you have supports and develops your thesis. So you're just basically showing, the change that happens by telling us a story. I really, and I should put it here though, I haven't. I just want to make sure that people, one of the big keys to this, and I guess I might have put it up here. Personal story about a specific episode during which you engaged in the process of digital literacy in a way that changed you or in some way led you to a deeper understanding of something. Again, not looking for like, don't believe in God, learn Snapchat, now I believe in God, right? Doesn't have to be super heavy. Mostly it will be, I don't know how to use these things. I probably never will, and then now I do, and suddenly what? Now I'm connecting with people who I haven't seen since second grade and all that business. Yeah, but the key I wanted to point out, just a specific episode is going to be key. Like, you want to find a focus. when you don't find a focus, what you end up doing is doing like a survey of your technological past, right? When I was growing up, all I had was AM radio and that was it actually, and records, right? And then now I do, and I went from this to this to this. Like none of that doesn't do anything but just give this sort of summary survey of your like march through time. Instead, you want to pick a specific thing that you dealt with, and that was difficult. That would be my other thing, right? You want something that was hard to do, like a project, right? Um, Even like the first time you went on Facebook and you went on, you're like, so what's this about? And I hate it already, probably, but I don't. Let me see how I do it, and like, and then you start typing in names. Oh my God, that I forgot about that. Right, that whole you can do that. You narrate that, and suddenly you're like, okay, I can do this thing, and what I get out of it is I'm connecting with people I haven't seen forever. Um, who knows? But anyway, that's so a specific episode or project or you need a unifying idea. That's the thing I'm worried about. Or that's the most difficult, I think, for this essay. Um, and then the conclusion. It's briefly summarizing the change that has happened. And the other thing to do to make it a solid essay is you want to refer back to whatever the hook is. So you might repeat some of the words that you used in the hook. Um, it just makes the essay tighter, right? If you, in the conclusion, you sort of, it's like comedians when they if they hit something like three times, like they hit a topic three times, it's supposed to be like it's a callback. That's what it's called. So it like makes the joke funnier. So, anyways, you're looking at that to do that one time. That's all that is. So that's the narrative. All right, and then I have these four things, which are sort of three. So now for the analysis, you're trying to make sure that basically this entire part, right, is all about making connections between the definition of what digital literacy is and your experience. Now, I'm trying to be. One of the things is it doesn't always have to fit. Okay, it can't. Well, some of it must fit, right? Because in theory, you're talking about digital literacy. So you're like, okay, here's part of digital literacy. This part of this definition that has to do with my experience, and you explain that one. So that's your main goal. It's also possible maybe some part of the definition didn't really apply to your experience, right? You could also write about that if you wanted to, right? So it's not about like, okay, I got to make sure, my experience exactly matches up with this definition. Not really. You need to pull out some of the concepts from the definition and talk about how they connected with you. And maybe this is just up to you, right? Maybe there's something that yours doesn't, because we still can learn, right? You can be like, okay, digital literacy says that but this is not really my experience. Instead, my experience was more like something else, and you explain that. So that's a sort of complex critical thinking thing. In any event, it's making that connection between your story that you told and what digital literacy really is. Focused and meaningful connection between narrative and digital literacy. So sentences. So I guess this is sort of the actual sentences are connecting some aspect of digital literacy to your narrative. You're trying to have a meaningful connection between the two. Yeah, go ahead, Anshad.
This was the problem I was having with the NLP part. Like last week as well on the prompt wheel.
Mm-hmm.
Like I picked up a word, like I just took a word as well, like
Right.
rapid growth,
Yes.
rapid development.
Exactly.
So like that, when I wrote like the first paragraph, like I was out of context after like first two paragraphs. Like I didn't know like what more to add. So like I wrote a fill up the paragraph on like fourth industrial revolution and then
Right, but
like
mm,
took a
Okay, but
written word.
but this thing, right? So this is so here's the thing. It's dependent on how well your the first part is, how well you've told a story. So if you have told the story, like for example, I would say you need an introduction, you would want to have three solid paragraphs, like you want 3 pages of some sort. So you're trying to, if you tell a story that has a specific episode in which you narrate it and give details, you do all of that stuff, it'll be much easier for you to make that connection. Um, if your story isn't really a story, or it's too short, or it doesn't really talk about anything specific, then you're going to have trouble making that connection. Absolutely, you're going to say, "I don't. What am I have to say about this?" So it's sort of dependent, right? You want to make sure that you take the time to really fully tell this story, and then turn your attention to connecting it to this um, definition. So when you did the prompts, that's okay. I mean, you did your first draft. That was the first draft of your narrative, and most people's first drafts were pretty short and missing a bunch of things. Meaning like they didn't have a thesis statement really. They didn't really tell a beginning, middle, end story. They did not really focus on a specific episode. So that's why that was difficult, right? So they wrote their first draft. They're missing things, and so then when they turn their attention to the analysis, it's very difficult because their narrative is not that great. So if you have an expansive narrative and you really go through to make the trouble of making sure that you're focusing on an episode and you're revealing some sort of change, then making that connection is easier, and you have more to say automatically. So I would say that's the thing. Yes, go ahead.
So I generally when I write a script, it says like I want to repeat it like 4 times or 5 times even after I've written it.
Hmm.
So like when I'm in the narrative part, it's good enough. So like when I went into the analysis part, I felt like I've already told this story. So
Hmm.
I just showed like how I made this easy, and that took me like 150 to 200 words, and I had to make it like 350
Okay,
words.
so I'm wondering. Yeah. Okay. All right. Hold on. So I'm wondering if your story is good enough, and I have to look at it myself to make sure to see what that's about. Because I don't remember because I've started to read people's essays. I'm not sure that you're telling a really like a very specific story. Here's okay. Let me try this also. This is might be true. I'm not looking at yours right now either, but you might have picked an episode that has virtually does not have enough just does not have enough in it, right? If I told my digital literacy narrative about learning like to turn on the computer, right? That'd take me about 4 sentences, and then that's it. And how am I going to analyze that in digital narrative? But if I talk about how the first time I built a website and all the different things I had to think about and I didn't know about and whatever, suddenly I'm having an actual experience, or I'm telling a story of an actual experience, and now I can actually see what how digital narrative connects to it, or digital literacy connects to it. Do you see what I mean? So if the thing that you've chosen to tell the story about is not good enough, does not offer enough material, you might want to think about using a different episode, because it does depend on that. You're absolutely right. If I pick an event, and it's not really a big deal event about digital literacy, something I learned very easily, very quickly, and didn't end up caring that much about or whatever, um, then I'm not going to have a whole lot to analyze. So you might want to look at that. These are just symptoms I'm talking about. Like, so people like students who are having this difficulty that you're describing to me. One of the things is maybe the episode you've picked is not offering you enough, or it's not important enough or developed enough or whatever, filled with enough details for you to actually expand on it. Maybe you've picked an episode that's very short and doesn't have a lot to offer. So you want to look at that and decide whether to change to a different episode, something that has more meaning in it. That would be one thing. The other thing is maybe the episode's perfectly fine, but you haven't developed it enough. You sort of skip, you know, I was born, I worked, I died. You know what I mean? Like you sort of skip all the stuff in between, and then, you know, it's not that great. So either you want to find a way to expand, like I said, I'm going to be sending. Once you see a grade in your rough draft, like for your rough draft, you'll know that I have made some comments. But likely, those are things I would say that I'll end up saying, like, all right, you need to find a way to expand your story. And what I mean by expand it, it means going much slower. You start at the very beginning, you take time to describe it, but since it's an episode, you're really trying to, focus in on a specific learning experience, I guess, right? So at the very beginning, what were you thinking? How did it feel? What were you hoping to be able to accomplish? Or why were you even bothering? Like, so why am I even trying to do Facebook? Like, what's the point of this? Like, I get to that point. Then I have the process of me going on to it. And I see this stuff and I'm not really sure. And then I see some people I know and it's kind of cool and whatever. Like, I'm taking the time to narrate sort of the step by step. So that's what I would say. My suggestion would be then, so look at your story, decide whether it has enough in it, and you just need to sort of take the time to tell it, or if it's just so short that it's not really going to be a good example for this. That would be the only thing. Yeah. Let me see.
If you want to change anything now, we have to that doesn't even write on a revision plan.
Yes.
If I had to do something different, what would I have done in that case?
Yeah. So no, if like for right now, if you're sitting here thinking, all right, I want to do something completely different. You do it differently from now on, right? Like you don't have to redo any of the stuff that you've done. You would do your revision plan would be like, okay, here's my revision plan. I'm going to tell a completely different story. Here's the story I'm going to tell, and then you do. Yeah. So but you don't ever have to redo like old things that you have already done. Like, and I'd much rather have that. Like, I'd rather have people, if you want to change, absolutely change, and just going forward, that's what you'll do. So you'll do the revision plan about it, and then you'll do the final draft about it. I think those are the last two things, really. So, yeah. All right. Yeah, good question. I'm going to try to have them done. What are we on? Today's Thursday. Um, yeah, so I'm going to try to have them done tomorrow, Friday, right? And what's good about this is that you'll have my suggestions, but all you need for Sunday is the revision plan, right? So it's not like you need which is essentially just saying, here's the thing that I need to do. And then you want to have the final draft. So yeah, I will say by tomorrow night, what are we on? Yeah. Time. Yeah. By tomorrow night, like this time, everybody should have comments. I did mention in my announcement though, we have a lot of people in class, so I'm definitely doing my best. So, but Fridays are pretty good. So I would say, yeah, by tomorrow, this time, you'll have comments. Then what you're doing is you're doing your revision plan, and that's okay. Right. I don't know. So the revision plan is trying to prompt people to be like, okay, I've got these comments from my peers, and I've got comments from me, and here's how I'm responding to it, and here's what I think I will do, to fix and improve and rise my essay. But there's a sheet for that, so you want to make sure you download the sheet or whatever, and you look at the specific questions. I mean, read the whole sheet; it's worthwhile. Some sheets say it's week 4, even though we're in week 3 sometimes, right? Because we have this overlap. Because the final draft is not due till Tuesday for week 4. In any event.
Professor,
Yeah.
says at the bottom of that says what
Yeah. What outside resources will you use in your writing? Right. Yeah. I don't. Um, I guess the definition. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't. No, you don't have to. You absolutely don't have to be looking for anything because this is not what this exercise is about. Like researching or doing anything about that. So,
Okay.
um, yeah, I don't know why they would put that there. I think you would just say um, none, which would be great. I will not be no, because you won't be. You shouldn't be actually, right? This is a like a personal memory essay narrative, and then your analysis using exactly just one definition, which is how I would want to keep it. So don't worry about that at all.
Unless we said like our reading resources for
Yeah.
or
Well, I mean, yeah. I'm trying to think of like that. If okay, so like for example, if you read the thing from last week, which was how to write a literacy narrative, and I attached it to I think I attached it to the slides because it's part of that big grammar manual or the big reference manual. So that could be something, right? You go, okay, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and use the reference manual because it talks about different things about how to write the literacy. You know what I'm talking about, right? Like it's attached. I think I attached it to it.
and we had this week too. We had history quotations.
Right. Exactly. Right, which is good. I actually yes, right. So I would say that's a great idea, right? Being able to say, yeah, I'm going to use those things or pick a couple of them that you're going to pay attention to. That would be fantastic.
Okay.
Good. All right. All right. Let's see. Um all right, I'll go ahead and I'm going to take a look at the go into the wiki world and see where people are and maybe distribute the lonely ones who are all by themselves in groups so you have something to do. I will email you to let you know that I did that so that you will know that. Um, and since I mean, don't worry about if it takes time for you to do it, right? Like, if you could have it, basically, if you could have it done, um, by Sunday, right? Because we're lucky in the sense, because this gets shorter. The next time, we don't have as much time in between, but like, if you could give someone feedback, that's useful no matter what. But don't worry about like having to have it done by tonight because that seems totally insane. But I will look at it, see like which groups are clearly or which people are sort of not there, and try to arrange it better. It's always a challenge the first week or the first time, anyways. Um, any other questions? Because I'll go to that. Well, I hope this was helpful. I really think it helps me anyway. I think it. I hopefully it does help people. I think like just explaining it out loud. It's just I wish, right? Like everybody could be here. Anyway, I will post this because I think I started taping it probably um, after the very beginning. But anyway, I'll post what I have, and and I'll post the PowerPoint, which is not going to be too much, other than the rubric. All right, guys. Good luck. I hope you're all staying healthy and taking care. And I will talk to everybody again next Thursday, and I will be in touch in between, in the meanwhile. But thanks for coming tonight. I totally appreciate it. It was excellent. Thanks. So have a good night.
You too, Professor.
Thank you.